Hello and good afternoon, everybody. This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, where I have the amazing opportunity to interview many guests that bring us inspiration, motivation, and education. And today we have another exciting guest. We have Mr. Timothy Barchard, who started in the martial arts in 1985. He is a 9th degree black belt in Aiki Kempo Karate, a 3rd degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and a crew instructor rank in Muay Thai. He is a 3-time KRANE National Karate Champion, and in 2006 won the Master Senior International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Championship in Rio de Janeiro. Mr. Barchard founded Professional Martial Arts Academy in 1994 and co-founded SART Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Association in 2013. Timothy is a former board member of Educational Funding Company and has consulted martial arts schools all across the country. Sir, thank you for being on the Master Motivation Podcast today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Really excited.
Well, we got a lot of catching up to do. It's been a bit, right? I mean, we met in the Maya program back in the day, and you've been doing some great stuff. You just got back from Brazil, which I can't wait to talk all about that. But my first question is going to be, talk to me about your motivation for being so engaged, so involved, and continuing with the martial arts.
I think one of the biggest things I've gotten with it through my instructors through the years is my instructors have always loved the martial arts, and they've really lived the martial arts, and the martial arts was their life. And the biggest thing I learned from them is, to love it, to do it, to keep that passion, you have to train, right? And training is, we all get burnt, we all get tired, we all have the days where, my whole day today coming back from Brazil, I sat in front of my computer, but I did train, I did roll. And I think it's important that we keep on, being a student, putting ourselves out there. There's days where I'm the hammer, the days when I'm the nail, but just getting on the mats and walking the talk,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the hammer and nail analogy. I hear that pretty often from my instructor as well. But loving the martial arts and having a passion for the martial arts. One of the things that you said is to continue being a student and continue learning, right? In my short or long, however you look at it, career, I have had the amazing privilege to learn from so many different instructors, work with so many martial artists all over the world. And it's just so exciting for me to learn something new. I'm not really always looking for that big thing. Sometimes it's just a light bulb that turns on from a discussion or, just a mindset or an attitude on looking at things differently. Where did that come from for you? And was there someone specific that maybe instilled that in you to continue being a student?
Like I said, all my instructors, for example, I got my black belt from In the Hands of Gracie organization, but specifically from Rafael Gorginho Lima. And I remember one time, he's a black belt world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is pretty amazing, it's a very select club, right? And I remember one time he was in here and he was training with the white belt, and sometimes we get a little ahead of ourselves, right? Sometimes we get a little ahead of ourselves. He was training with the white belt, and he asked the white belt, the guy, and he's like, "What were you doing to me?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I was doing this. He's like, "Oh," and he didn't say much of it. But then I looked at him, and he was like doing the things that the white belt was doing to him. And he was trying to figure out how to make it work and how to do it and how it was working. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? We get to a point where we think, we do it every day and we think we're at a level, but man, we're just scratching the surface, right? I guess we can go back to the old saying that the black belt is like the first day of the way, right? The end of the first day, right? Have you heard that analogy before? The black is symbolized the night of the first day, and we have the rest of our life. So sometimes we put the black belt as the end all be all, but it really just shows you like, man, I have a long way to go and there's so much more to learn.
Absolutely. Well, I can remember being a lower rank and looking forward to being a black belt. And like you said, sometimes we look at that black belt as being the end all be all. I watched the black belts that were my instructors and the people that I looked up to. And I was like, man, if I could just be that good, or if I could just be, if I could get to that spot, oh man, that would be so awesome. Right. And then, you earn your black belt, and along the way, you earn your different degrees of black belt. And I just got to a point where I was like, there's really literally never an end to the amount. I mean, the more you learn, it's pretty cliche to say it, right? The more you learn, you realize what you don't know.
Uh-huh.
And so it is so exciting, because for me, I started in a very traditional Tong Sudo background, right? So like anything on the ground was completely foreign. We didn't do a lot of weapons. We didn't really do a lot of competitions. So as I earned my black belt, and I try to remind my black belts the same thing, is I kind of looked for things to really focus in on more, So when I got my first degree black belt, I started working on my fighting. When I got my second degree black belt, I started doing a little combat Hapkido. I got my third black belt, and I really started working in Ketsugo Jiu-Jitsu. And just kind of the list goes on and on of ways to keep myself hungry, and it became less about the belts per se, or the rank. It just became more about the knowledge for myself. But then even beyond that, it became the knowledge for myself to share with my students and be able to pass that on. Because I never want my students to get to a point where they think they know it all. Like if you get to the point where you think you know it all, like you missed lesson number one,
Yeah.
so got to keep going. Now, where did you start in martial arts? Where'd you get your first start?
I started from this guy, Bobby Lamatina. His nickname is Tokyo Joe. It was a Fred Villari school way back when. But then it was during the times when Fred Villari is having a problem with all the people, so they're all breaking off, and it went to masters, and some people went their own way, and he went his own way. So I started with him. Eventually, I wound up, going off doing my own thing. And looking at, expanding my knowledge, right? We were a very good fighting school, a very good tournament school, a very, you went in there, you fought hard, you trained hard, and the room was a room full of killers. It really was. And, and that's why I said Mr. Lamatina was one of the ones that he was always out there mixing up with you too, right? He wasn't one of the guys sitting on the sidelines. He wasn't, he could do everything he wanted you to do, right? But then I started looking, like in '94 when the UFC came out, and I had the opportunity to, roll with one of the, there's two brothers out there, Keith and Kenny Florian. Kenny Florian fought a long time in the UFC and stuff, and I started training under him. But his younger brother was a lot smaller than me and a purple belt at the time. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get on the ground with you. And he just tied me up like a pretzel, and then he was beating me with no hands, and I'm like, all right, what's going on here? Decided that I wanted to do a little bit more like a combat art. So I went to, Muay Thai, and I was lucky enough to fall into Mark Delagrati, which you couldn't get into at that time. I don't know if you ever heard of Mark Delagrati, but he's, probably one of the best, not known striking coaches in the United States. Amazing. I've watched him just toy with numerous high-level people, fought in Thailand. I went to him, and, he had his students with me, and, just kind of go from there, just kind of expand. And then, we went to the MMA route where I trained a lot of MMA fighters from the ground up to all the way from the local shows up through the UFC. And, just there's such a expansive knowledge out there, and expansive ways to do things. And, there's only so many ways to throw a punch and a kick and stuff like that. But the strategy you use them, the way you use them, and where you use them, it's totally different. So it's a lot of fun to get out there and learn something new.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. You have a pretty extensive background, but, really it seems like your focus is in the MMA world, right? More with the ground fighting. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. I've kind of, shuffled away from the fighters are great and they're, hard training and stuff like that, but it's a lot of, you didn't spend enough time with me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't deal with that anymore. I can't deal with the, because of they get into a cage and, they'll punch each other in the face, but you spend 15, minutes less time with them, and they're, they're upset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of, like I went that way, but I really went back to, the school, almost like I'm enjoying blending the traditional martial arts with what I know is what we're having a lot of fun doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great, great. Awesome. Hey, I just want to invite anybody that is watching this live. If you have any questions for myself or for Tim, please share your comments, your questions. Let us know you're here watching, and do us a favor, share the video, like it. Again, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Master Motivation Podcast. So, talking with Tim here, about his school, his beginnings. Tell me a little bit about growing up. Maybe, before martial arts, during martial arts, just kind of as a kid, where are you from?
All right, so I was born in Massachusetts. Basically lived in New Hampshire my whole life. Kind of, New Hampshire's kind of a quiet, rural, small city type, bigger town type of a lot of country. I started, just coming up, regular kid. I played a lot of sports. I played basketball. I played football. I played baseball. I was a small kid. I was a late bloomer athletically. Really 17 is where 16, 17 is where I started hitting my stride in the sports world, and I was always small. So, playing sports, I started lifting, I think a freshman in high school, I was like just under 120 pounds. I was super skinny, and it didn't play well for everything. So I wanted to bulk up. I started lifting and started training, and I really hit the training bug for lifting and competitive powerlifting. I competitive powerlifted for a long time and stuff, and I got pretty good at the bench press. I latched onto a guy. I don't know if you ever heard of Ted Arcidi. Ever hear of Ted Arcidi?
Ted Arcidi, he was a professional wrestler, so I absolutely know who Ted Arcidi is.
I can tell you some stories about that. So I met him. He was training at the gym I was at. I was a strong kid. I was in the into the 500-pound range of bench pressing and stuff like that. And so we kind of latched on. I went with him, and after he got out of the WWF at that time, it was the WWF. He went to the circuit on the independent circuit. So I would travel with them to train with them. So I went to a lot of shows, shows and met a lot of people like Iron Mike Sharp and the Wild Samoans and Ken Patera and Ivan Putski and, Bam Bam Bigelow, Captain Lou Albert. So I met a lot of people on the circuit. Yeah.
Well, hey, I got to throw it in there now because we're talking about pro wrestling. If you are watching this live, you better be in Chatsworth, California at the Millennium Pro Wrestling Legends Night this Friday, December 22nd, 7 p.m. Danny Devine, if you're watching, you're mine.
There you
Street
go.
fight this Friday, Danny Devine. So I had to throw in. We're talking about pro wrestling. Got to put a little plug in there for that. So you were running with these guys, lifting heavy, lifting hard. I just got a good lift in myself. Definitely not in the 500 range, not even close. But so you're doing that, traveling a little bit, and tell me some more.
Yeah. So I was young. I was 18. I had a junior world record in the bench press when I was 18 years old. I actually, it's funny talking about wrestling. Paul Levesque, who's known as Triple H, I trained with him for years in Gold's Gym in Nashua. And
no way.
When he first started, we'd always joke to him when he was terrorizer in the local circuit that someday he was going to make it big and he'd be laughing at all us little people, right? So it's kind of cool to see that how successful he's become. But I was doing that, and at the time, in 85, I was into lifting, but I took a karate class, and with my buddy, one of my good friends, he was doing it, so I went in there and tried it, and I really liked it. But at that point, lifting was still my thing, so I did karate, a little bit, right? I did a little bit, and kept my foot in the door, but it wasn't my main thing. And it wasn't until I hurt my shoulder lifting where I couldn't lift anymore. So I'm like, I had to do something. So that's where I went to karate and full time. And I really, really just, it bit me. Yep.
Yeah. Well, they say when one door closes, another door opens. And that was kind of what happened with you. Now, do you still lift? You still like to lift heavy? You still get after it in the gym?
No, I don't lift. I don't lift heavy anymore. I do more functional training, more full body, compound movement, stuff like that. Add the cardio in it with the burpees and stuff. All the stuff I hate, but add the burpees in and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
So,
but my joints won't take it anymore. My joints,
right.
Lifting heavy just isn't fun anymore.
Well, I have a brother-in-law who has been a power lifter, almost his whole life. He's just over 60, I believe now. And he tells me all the time, he's like, stop lifting heavy. Your joints are going to hate you for it later. And something about it, and I don't lift heavy every day, but there's something about that lift. I mean, of course it strokes your ego a little bit, right? But like, I don't know. I feel like when I leave the gym and I had a really good lift, I feel accomplished for the day. It just feels good to get it in. So if my body's still holding up, I lift heavy, bulk up a little bit for my match on Friday. But usually I'm doing, what you were talking about, right? Functional training. We're martial artists, so we don't need to be super big and super powerful muscle wise. We need to be explosive. We need to be quick. We need to be agile, limber. So try to spend a little more time, flexibility training too, staying loose, right? Because that's a killer.
Yes.
So growing up as a kid, you played other sports and did some other activities. What would you say you took from the other sports that you played, and how did that blend in your karate, or the other way around? How did karate kind of make you a better athlete?
Well, I think obviously the all the benefits. We can sit here and talk for hours about the benefits of the martial arts, right? I think everybody, if you don't know, the martial arts just ties everything together, right? Life, everything from, strength, flexibility, endurance, confidence to, from every aspect of your life. So it ties it in. But I think what happened was I developed, since I was I don't want to say the runt, but since I wasn't I wasn't the worst, right? I was probably always like third best. I was third fastest. I was third best. Third, I was like third. And, to me, third sucked. It did. It wasn't fun after a while, but the people that were obviously that were better than me were better than me, right? But then I found out, I work, and it didn't, and whatever. But then the martial arts, it was all about me, right? And if I spent more time on the mat, if I spent more time doing this and that, and it's like anything else, but it has a direct correlation on me, right? And so I remember one of our football teams, we were horrible, and I tried so hard, and we lost every game. And actually, there was a game that we traveled for, and they had to forfeit because they didn't meet the recommended players on it. But we still played, and we still lost. And and I was always trying my heart out, and I get so frustrated, like, man, I'm trying, and people not taking it serious, and people not not trying, and get discouraged. So once the martial arts opened up, that was my jam. Like, okay, this is about me, almost like lifting, right? Lifting was about me, and that's what I think kind of bit me on it. It was all about me. I didn't have to really, if somebody else had a bad day, it didn't affect me.
Well, having a martial arts school, right? You can relate to this and understand that you probably get a lot of parents that bring kids to you, and they're like, we tried soccer, we tried baseball, we tried all the team sports, and it just wasn't the right fit for my son or daughter. And then, because martial arts is a more individualized activity, the one thing that I do love about martial arts is, yes, it is an individual based activity, with the support system of your coach or your instructors and your teammates or classmates all around you, which I think is, it kind of ties the best of all sports and activities in with all the benefits of martial arts, as you explained. And since we're talking about martial arts, I thought this would be a good time to jump in here before we start talking about your school. And just for those of you here in Moorpark, California watching, take a look and learn a little bit more about my school, Moorpark Karate and Krav Maga. Well, thank you guys for hanging out and watching that quick commercial about More Park Karate and Krav Maga. You can go to moreparkkarate.com for more information. So, Tim, we started talking about, the martial arts and kids coming into martial arts for different reasons. Let's talk about how you opened your school. When was the decision made for you to open your own school, and how did that happen?
Well, it's so funny how you talk about one door closes and another one opens. So, growing up, my father was a mechanic, and he worked in Ford dealerships and ran Ford dealerships, raced cars. So, of course, I was a gearhead growing up, right? Loved cars. I would scrape gaskets, head gaskets, and grind valves and stuff like that when I was a kid. And he showed me how to weld. And of course, I wanted to get in the business. So I was a mechanic. And I was a mechanic for 9 years. And I just, as we were going through, I started really opening my eyes, right? Have you ever heard the saying that success leaves clues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing, where something bad is going to leave clues. And I was looking at all the people, and all the people there that were older, that are my age now, they all hated life. They hated their job. They go out, they drank a lot, they weren't happy. And I just couldn't picture myself being that old, right? Or like that. So one day my boss was really on my nerves and stuff like that. And so I quit my job, right? And I don't know if you know anything about being a mechanic, but if you're a mechanic, especially a good one, you have work you never want for a job. You'll always have a job. There's so many car dealerships and places out there. You'll always have a job. They're always looking. So I was looking around at the time. I was living pretty inexpensively. I was living with two other guys. We rented a house in a bad neighborhood, but so it was cheap. I was teaching karate part-time, right? I was teaching karate part-time. And, so I'm like, I don't know. I'll just, relax a little bit. And, I was fielding offers from other mechanics and automotive shops. And my instructor said, well, why don't you open a school? I'm like, I never thought of it. So, 4 months later, I sold all my tools. I had no plan B, everything I had to make a living. I sold them all the money to open a school. And I opened the school. And, and as soon as I got there, I sat down there and, okay, now what do I do? It was pretty surreal. So, I really, from 5 months from quit my job, I opened the school, sold everything I owned to open the school so I could, pay the rent and, get the build out and stuff like that. And, and I just went from there.
Yeah. Well, you asked it, I don't know anything about being a mechanic. My father, could build a car from parts. He worked on his motorcycles growing up. I couldn't change my own oil if I had to be honest with you. I can change a tire. I can do that. But so I don't know anything about being a mechanic, but my father was also in construction, and you talk about, life leaving clues, right? And how you saw these people that were miserable, that hated their job, growing up with a dad who worked in construction, custom homes, did the whole bit, everything from, digging the ditches and doing the footings and framing, roofing, the whole bit, right? Like I grew up being on the job kind of a lot. So I did kind of get handy, but I looked at that and I was like, there is no way I can do this for the rest of my life. Like it was fun. It was cool. I learned to be handy. I hope my wife is not watching because I tell her that I'm not handy and I don't know how to do things. I always hire someone to do it. But like those clues were left for me. I was like, I don't want this. I don't want this life. My story of opening school, kind of similar though. No plan B, right? Sell all the tools, get rid of everything, and start from scratch. And now what, right? So you open the school, and you're like, now what? You're sitting in a school now. Did you open with any students whatsoever?
None whatsoever. I didn't. I had no idea. The town I'm in now, I liked, and the reason why I liked it, it was a quiet, like a cool little looking downtown, a small downtown, and I only knew about it because I would drive through it to go to the beach when I was a kid. and I'm like, I just want to open here. And they're like, okay, back then there was no, business was kind of, especially martial arts. You didn't know about demographics. You didn't know about, media, household incomes and all. You didn't know about that stuff. So I'm like, oh, it's all open there. And
Right.
I got a little storefront that was run down. That I think there was like a foot difference from one corner to the other corner in the level of the floor. You know, um, but yeah, no idea whatsoever. I just thought it was a cool town and hopped into it and opened the school and sat there. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do?
Right. What year was this?
1994. 1994.
94. So again, I started my school in 94. I
Uh-huh.
started at a rec center because that's how my instructor did it, and that's how I started.
Uh-huh.
Was build up enough students in a rec center program, and then I pulled them over to that location. So it wasn't until 96 that I actually opened the doors, but 94 started the program. And yeah, we didn't really think about it. How big was your town? How what was the population,
My
if you had to
town,
guess?
even now is about 33,000 people.
Bro, we're like almost my town now, same place where I first opened. We're at 34
Uh-huh.
700, 34,700. So same, right? Small
Uh-huh.
little town, which is kind of unique too, because you've been around the industry for a while and you talk to all these consultants and people that have been in business for a long time and
Uh-huh.
talk about how to look for where to place your school. Like we did everything wrong. We did
Uh-huh.
everything almost backwards, right? So tell me, as you're sitting in your school, no students, you've signed a lease, right? And what did you start doing, and what were some of the pitfalls, mistakes, failures that you had early on?
Oh my goodness. I think I failed at everything, right? No, but I think what I did is I just started my biggest thing, like I had no idea what to do. Yeah, I had no idea. So I just go around, I started talking to business owners and I got really friendly with the business owners in town is what happened, right? And I
Mhm.
started talking to them and I started, interaction with I would talk to their customers who were in there and, then I would get a student to come in and I'd be so grateful that I probably talked to probably, they'd come in twice a week, but I'd probably talk on the phone with like 3 times a week. Oh, you
Mhm.
doing great, just, a lot of communication like that. And it just kind of spiraled from there where a lot of business to business, face to face stuff, right, was the thing.
Mhm.
I know the yellow pages were big there at that time, but I didn't have money to put an ad in the yellow pages. I didn't, and especially you had a couple giants like Buzz Durkin and stuff like that, dominated the yellow pages and stuff like that. So I didn't have the money to do that. So I just went around and talked to people is what I did. And I was always, the biggest thing, I was always at my school. I would get there and I didn't want to miss anybody. I didn't want to miss
Mhm.
anybody, good or
Mhm.
bad, whether, worked out in the end. But I spent a lot of hours at the school. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of business owners and especially martial arts, first of all, when you open a martial arts school, it's like your own personal playground anyway, right? So as long as you got a partner or as long as you got a bag, like you got a
Uh-huh.
place to practice and work out. So that's always cool. But we really get to know it. There's something about that when you first start out and you're smaller and you're talking about, business to business and community. How much of that stuff do you still do to this day though, that helped, that grassroots marketing, getting to know everybody, networking, working in your community? How much of that stuff do you still do now today?
I'm I really believe in today's society with all this automation, all this thing, I think has really hurt our industry. I am a huge person on I'm in your face, I'm calling you, I'm sending out postcards, I'm collecting cards, I'm out talking to businesses, So I'm a huge advocate of keeping that way. In today's society, think about it, my phone bill is messed up. So I call the phone company and I have to do it automated, but it doesn't work. So I have to do this. And so it's 45 minutes to finally talk to a person and it takes 5 minutes to fix, right? And
Hmm.
I just didn't want that, right? So I'm right. We do so much with the schools and the parent teacher organizations and the soup kitchen, and we have this upper room that handles teens and kids in crisis, and we're huge advocates of being part of our community.
Definitely. I think you're right. There's something to be said about technology and automation being helpful and being useful, but like you, I still have paper roll cards. I don't have a
Uh-huh.
scan-in system. I I tell everybody, what software do you use? I don't have a software for my
Uh,
school still. I mean,
yeah.
we're 30 plus
Uh,
years. I don't. I love the personal connection. And here's where it stemmed for me, and maybe for you the same way. When I was coming up in the karate school was my home away from home.
mhm.
I love being in the karate school. I love being with the black belts that I looked up to. I love being with the people that I trained with. And when I opened my school, I really strive to make my school be the same way for other kids, because
Mhm.
I know how many kids don't have a dad at home, or come from a home where, mom and dad are divorced or separated, and like the karate school is their family. It's like their place that they really get to feel good and be a part of. And so that personal connection and the relationships, um you know I might not teach every day in my school now, but I remember getting to the school at 8 or 9 o'clock, because back then I couldn't forward the phone calls to my cell like I do
Right.
now. I had to,
Yeah. Yeah.
if the phone rang, I
Uh,
wanted to be there. If someone walked in, I wanted to be there. I was there,
exactly.
early in the morning, stay late. And of course, we cleaned the school by ourselves. We did everything. But even though I'm not in the school every day, I have a team that I have brought up since they were little dragons. I mean, my son, who started at 2.5 in our little dragons program, is one of our leaders, one of our main instructors at the school, along with my head instructor, and they've been with me for since they were kids, and they came up in that same culture, and I think that culture is so important. And even my social media, I don't automate any. I don't farm out my social media to anybody. I do it because I like our pictures. I like our stuff. Dabble a little bit with Chat GPT to make my post sound a little bit different. So
Uh-huh.
there's some benefits, but I think that you're right. I think that our industry has come to rely on certain things that remove the personal connection. And I think when you lose the personal connection, it loses the heart and the soul of your school. Would you agree with that?
I agree. And I'm not saying obviously these people that have these softwares are amazing, and there's a lot of people that do it really well and are
Yeah.
succeeding at it. But my personal belief is like when the person comes in, okay, you have a scan card and you do this, you scan, and then you go on that. No, I want to. We have a greeter at the door. We greet you at the door.
Mm-hmm.
You grab a physical card. We grab it from you so we can shake your hand and say hi.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost like I don't know. You talk about we're all about relationships, right? That's what our whole industry is about, relationships. So if I walk into my mom's house, she's not going to just be sitting flipping on the TV, being, she's going to, greet me, hug me. She's going to say hi to me. And that's the feeling I want, exactly like you. Get that feeling for the students. Make them, like you're happy they're there, right? Because they are. They pay you to be there. And
Right.
so I think it's super important that we keep that relationship.
Well, and not just the relationship between instructor and student, but also between student and student. We
Mhm.
just yesterday, for example, we had a little movie marathon at the school, right? It's a Sunday. My son and one of the instructors, actually, it was the other instructor's idea, and my son got involved with it. And they're like, hey, let's have because when he was growing up, like we'd have movie nights at the school all the
Uh-huh.
time. All right. And we would charge for it, parents' night outs. We still do
Uh-huh.
parents' night outs, but this was just like literally, hey, come and bring your blanket pillow. We're gonna pop some popcorn and just hang out in the school.
Uh-huh.
They, of all movies, they chose Karate Kid,
Uh-huh.
the original Karate
Yeah,
Kid,
there you go.
and then they watched The Last Dragon, which and then they wanted to watch Bloodsport. That by then everybody was fried. They're like, movie marathon is over. I'm tired.
Yeah.
People fall
Uh-huh.
asleep. But my point is, things that bring those students together to where those students are having and experience with the other students. And it's like they become brothers and sisters. They become like family. They, I see it every day where, it's cool about social media, right? Someone's at so-and-so's birthday party, or, the parents from the school are now going out and having date nights together. And that's because of our school. They wouldn't have known each other otherwise, but the relationships have been formed, and that bond is there. I think it's good for the school. I think it's good for the students. I think it's good for all the families, and it's good for our community, so it's really a win-win-win all the way around. So again, not just between the student and the instructor, but students with students. Are there things that you do in your school that kind of create that culture and help bring the students together a little bit more?
Yeah, I think, from the leadership groups we have, where the SWAT team, the storm team, the junior instructors, help them come in. But then, we have a lot of team building stuff a lot of role playing, a lot of character education, safety stuff. So they're always interacting with everybody. We make sure that we're partnering people up, so they're always working with different people, establishing that relationship. But I think it comes from the top. When you're generally interested, like if you're coming to my school and I'm interested in Johnny, you're going to be interested in Johnny too, what he has to say, right? And I'm talking to Sarah, well, you're going to be interested in what Sarah has to say too. So I think it's important that as the instructors, when they make everybody feel important, then people start to see that and like, oh, this person's important. Right, they start treating that way. So I think a big thing is coming from the leadership of the instructors. Step back a little bit. I think when we talk about relationships and stuff like that, I think it's super important that a lot of people miss out on is the relationship with the parents. My wife is amazing of coming, and I've never seen anybody work like her before, right? And she's amazing, and she has such a rapport with the parents from the interaction she has with the parents that she'll just tell the parent, well, Mrs. Smith, you're being ridiculous. You go sign them up for this right now, and you're doing them a disservice. And I'm like, Laura, you can't talk to them like. And they're like, no, I can. And she does, and the parents love it. It's because the relationship she has with the parents, the trust that she's gained, and she has that emotional connection. And it's just super important because, when the kids come in, kids are going to do things for two reasons. They're forced to do it or it's fun, but the parents are always going to get there. But when you lose the parent, when the parent's like, oh, I don't want to fight with them, well, then you've lost the student, right? So keeping the parents engaged and, what is it? The kids can do karate, but you really enroll the parents. And so the relationship with the parents, you're not going to get that by the kid coming in and scanning their key code by themselves. The parent sits outside, looking at a little TV screen. You're not going to get that with that, if that makes sense.
No, it makes makes complete sense to me. And I bet if your wife and my wife got together, they get to know each other really well and be on the same page, because although my wife is not necessarily an instructor in the school, she has a great rapport. I think that, when you have that rapport and when you have that relationship, you can be almost brutally honest. You can, be candid with them, because there is that trust there and there is that relationship and the influence that we have on these families. Because, it's funny. I remember being, 17, 18 years old early on as an instructor, and parents would come to me and they would ask me questions. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have kids. I don't really know the answer to this, but I'm going to give you the answer that I think. And at the time I was probably more egotistical about it at 17, 18. I thought I knew everything anyway, but I would give them an answer and they would take it like it was like that was the right answer, because they had a belief and they had a trust and they had the relationship with me. It was things like, how do I get them to go to karate? They don't want to go to karate. How do I discipline them? How do I get them to practice? Things like that, and I find myself now as a much more experienced instructor, much more experienced in life, having an 18 and a 21-year-old, now adult children growing up, having been through the program and watching all, I'm pretty bold sometimes in what I say, And
But you can
at
say it from
first,
experience, right? You say
you
it from
can.
experience, right?
Yeah.
My kids, same exact thing. And sorry to interrupt you. My kids, same exact thing. And I can sit there, Mrs. Smith, you're right. My kids, the two working here did the same exact thing,
Yep.
right? So now you're talking from experience.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
tie it in. And their kids, there were times my kids hated it. And you know how many times they wanted to quit and fought
Yep.
me. And it's, now you have that experience.
And it adds, you can relate. You can really relate. When I was 17, 18, I couldn't really relate. I just told them how I thought it should be, but now I can definitely relate. And you'll get the occasional parent that's like, I don't know, and you can tell that they're skeptical. But in the end, it's like committing to a black belt. We have a 3-year program committing to black belt, and people look at me like I don't even know what I'm gonna do in 3 years from now. And then their child earns their black belt, and they're like, you were right. You knew exactly. And it's like, oh yeah, I knew because I had the experience, not just because like I want you to sign up for this program. So that adds to it. Hey, while we're talking about this, black belt and talking about martial arts, I want to introduce you one more time to another one of the strong supporters of our program, who has a great school, Littleton, Colorado, and he is the creator of Raptor Extreme Karate. This is Kevin Kowalczyk. Take a look. I just love watching that video. I like the music, gets me all pumped up and excited. Guys, if you're a school owner out there and you're looking for a program to add to your school that brings some excitement and some energy to your floor, take a look at raptorkarate.com and check out Kevin Kowalczyk's amazing program. So, Tim, we were just talking about parents and earning their trust, earning their relationship, earning their loyalty, really, right? Because we were talking about, kids getting to black belt. And sometimes when parents start karate, they really have no idea what a black belt actually means. You tell them it takes about 3 to 5 years to earn a black belt in a traditional school like ours. And they're like, wow, that's a long time. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And they go through these peaks and valleys of their training. Your kids have had it. My kids have had it. Tell me a little bit more about your path to black belt and your journey that you take your students on as you're training them.
So we start, you're probably looking at 4 to 5 years to a black belt in our program, our traditional program. But when we have it, we have, the basic ranks. We have the first couple belts go pretty quickly just to get them, like we kind of added a belt, split their first belt in half. So the kids understand, about setting a goal and achieving the goal, kind of a quick little, now goal setting, and start to develop that yes, I can attitude. But then it's about, 4 years, 4.5, but then we have a 10-month training cycle at the end. Okay, you're ready to get ready for your black belt, and it's a 10-month training program where you have to run, push-ups, sit-ups, so many classes, so many rounds of sparring and stuff like that. And then you have to come every graduation. We graduate like every 5 weeks. And so depending on where you're at, but they come and demonstrate at every one, and that finishes it up there. So it's every 5 weeks for 10 cycles. So it's really 50 weeks. And what it is just really, that's really the fine tuning, the pressure where you're missing your classes, you're not going up, you're not doing your stuff, you're not going up, you don't make your time, you don't go up, I'm the one, I love to have my students and stuff like that, but I'll never sacrifice a black belt. So I'll fight, tooth and nail, like, no, they're not ready. Oh, I'm going to quit, but then quit, that might've worked as an orange belt where we'll, give or take and help the student, but you're going for a black belt, and black belt is something that really, I don't think a black belt is not something that, yeah, you earn it, but it's something you become, right? A black belt is something that you become, and I think super important. So our whole path is coming up, and we have a traditional system that, like I said, the first couple of quick 5-week, just go through, but then somewhere it's 20 weeks to go through the advanced ranks, and you have a 10-month really, which is 10 5-week cycles, so it's 50 weeks to get ready for the black belt. So yeah, a lot of physical requirements, a lot of, there's also, you have to do your good too. There's so many, thing, like, donate time, whatever it is, you have to do and stuff. So to tie in everything from, it's not about the physical, it's also about the person you are.
Yeah. I like what you said about how a black belt is not just something you earn. A black belt is who you become, because, once you become a black belt in martial arts, you become someone that can achieve really anything in their life, because of that discipline, talking about setting a goal, achieving a goal, having a yes, I can attitude. It's just so important for not only kids, but for adults. I mean, I find that many adults come to us not having those skills or having those traits, for whatever happened in their life, or, however they were brought up, they just don't have that mindset. And I think that, when you have a black belt mindset, and by the way, you don't have to be a black belt to understand a black belt mindset. I always tell my students, if you train like a black belt, act like a black belt, and you will become a black belt over time, right? And so you don't have to be a black belt to train like one or act like one. It's the attitude, it's the mindset. Tell me how that mindset has helped you achieve things in your life beyond the martial arts.
Yeah, I think the one thing you do is a lot of times, as training for a black belt, and you go through, there's a lot of times when you knock down, you've always heard the hammer and the nail analogy, and there's when you get beat down, and I just went to Brazil, and and I trained one room, and it's a bunch of killers, young killers, right? I'm 54 years old, and I'm going with 22-year-old people that hit the podium in the world championships, but it's okay. I'm in this position, I'm in this place. Let me think my way out of it. How would I react to it? How do I get out of it? How do I advance? And so that tenacity of staying calm, right? When you're take it in jiu-jitsu, for example. So if somebody's on you, get somebody good on there, and they're smushing you down, and very easy to panic and react. But when you panic, react, it makes it worse, right? Same thing ends in life. Something gets you down, or you're arguing with somebody, and you argue more, and you yell and scream, it makes it worse. So that calmness, okay, let me just stop here, think, how do I get to a better position? How do I advance? How do I go? What's going to be better for me? So no matter what you do, when you're running the thing, you're like, okay, you get emotional. Let me take the emotion out of it, right? Let me take the emotion out of it. In the martial arts, you do, like, somebody's, trying to punch you in the face, you get all emotional. What's going to happen? It's going to be worse and worse and worse, right? But then, okay, breathe, let me be calm, let me figure it out. And so that problem solving ability, that I think it's very understressed in the martial arts, that you learn how to solve problems. You learn how to overcome yourself. You learn how to overcome your fear, your uncertainties, your doubts, right? You learn to okay, how do I get in a better position? How do I make myself better? And that's something no matter what. Like, okay, opening the schools, you're scared. I had no idea. Right. But then, okay, now let me take that fear out. What do I have to do now? What's my next logical step? And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in the martial arts, and I can do it. Hey, listen, I can do this. If I focus it and I set my sights, and I may fall down, I may, bump my knee and hit my head, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep going forward. That's the biggest lesson in life in the martial arts I think you can learn.
Absolutely. Well, before you actually said the two words, I wrote down problem solving. As a martial artist, and with that mindset, is that you're constantly problem solving instead of focusing on the problem, we're focused on solving the problem or focusing on a result, right? And your analogy of being smushed and smashed or getting punched in the face, because these are all things that we as martial artists just kind of come to accept something. Well, I shouldn't say we don't accept it. It happens. It's something that happens on the mat. And when you have those when you're getting smashed by someone or you're getting punched in the face by someone, like anything else that happens in life couldn't be really any harder than that. Like when someone really wants to take you out, you know what I mean? Like, all your other problems seem so much less than that. But, just that focus and that mindset of, okay, let's solve, instead of focused on being, having the victim mentality. Oh, I'll never be good, or I can't do it. I can't beat that guy. It's not really always about beating that person. It's about not just surviving, but how do I prevent that maybe from happening the next time? Right. We talk about our diet. I just lost 27 pounds. I mean, it's pretty simple. Stop putting crap food in your mouth and work out a little bit more, and you're going to be okay. But like, I got to a point where I was like, man, I'm so frustrated with myself. I'm like, why am I so fat? Why am I so big? Oh, I know why. Because I'm eating like shit. So stop eating like shit. And and here I am feeling great, feeling strong, feeling, ready at almost 50 years old myself, still getting in the ring with a, young 20, but I might be 30 now, but like hanging out with those guys. And I think that's kind of cool, in the martial arts too, right? You're 54, but you're rolling with guys in their 20s and 30s. That's got to keep you feeling pretty young, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it definitely does. Well, no, it definitely does, right? So I look at a lot of my friends. Like I go out and go my friends. I look and they're like, one of my friends who super bad back from he has a hard time walking and getting around this time. And I'm like, man, you guys gotta start doing something for yourselves. So getting out there in the mats and getting crushed. And then you step back, you're like, well, look what I'm doing. And the people my age aren't doing that. They're sitting around, they're doing nothing. So it's very, I guess sometimes we're driven by ego sometimes, right? We're driven by ego sometimes. And like I was in Brazil and, I was training, and one of the young studs came up to me and he's like, man, you're in shape. And I'm like, he's like, you're 54, man. Oh, I want to be like you when I grow up. And when you're like, man, all right, this is kind of cool, right? And it's just, no, you don't do it for that, but that's a cool feeling, right? That I do get out there, I did, can do it. So that's the biggest thing, that you can get out there and do it. And there's times, there's times where I'm not doing it as well as I think I can because of my body's, my body's sore, my body's acting up or something like that. But you get out there and you do it.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I've actually never been to a single one of my high school reunions, right? So I can only kind of go off of what I see on social media, what I see on Facebook. Man, sometimes I look at people that are my age that graduated high school the same year that I graduated high school, and I'm like, dude, they look like 10 or 20 years older than I'm like, how is this even possible? And I get comments from other people about how, people I train with or work out with, they're like, you're 50? And I'm like, yeah, but like, I stayed in shape for the most part, had my ups and downs, but like, sometimes I look at it, I'm like, and you're right, because like, they don't really put themselves in that uncomfortable position intentionally. They get uncomfortable, but they don't put themselves in uncomfortable situations, to keep growing themselves and to keep working. Right. And I think that's something that, I don't know, maybe just martial artists in general, but like the mindset of someone that wants to continue growing, it continues to do that, right? Just finding those uncomfortable spots and improving yourself from there.
Yeah, and then you don't like being there. You don't want to, like, for example, my son is a beast on the mats.
Yeah.
And as an instructor, part of his training, bringing him up. I'm glad, but he whoops me on the mats now. He whoops me, and he toys with me. And I'm like, you mf'er, stop playing with me. And which is awesome. But it makes you want to, like, okay, how do I keep that edge to where it's not. And that's what you do in the thing, like, okay, I make sure I'm eating right and I'm working out and I'm, doing my flexibility, and it keeps you on the path, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
keeps you going. So a lot of times when you get out there and you have a bad day, well, being the like every martial artist is competitive. Else you wouldn't be doing it. Every black belt is competitive. Else you wouldn't be doing it, right? And you use that fire, like, wait a minute, he just whooped me. I better get my act in shape, right? No, seriously, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think I think it's like today I went with the strong guy, right? And strong, and I was a little tired. I just got back from Brazil, right? Long trip, long traveling. We have nasty rainstorms here. I get in my basement here. I have, I'm getting water. I've been dealing with that. And I get on the mats, and this guy is like 240 pounds, and he's grinding my face into the mat. On top of grinding, and I'm like grinding, and that was like 3 minutes before I get out, and I'm like, damn, I'm gonna go work out so that doesn't happen again, because that wasn't too much fun,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, the other thing that keeps the younger guys honest is, us older-ish guys. Sometimes we just have to play dirty. I think it's the
Well,
only way that I could. It's the only way that I could beat my son these days too. It's like I just fight dirty and pull the daddy card.
yeah, that daddy card doesn't work for me anymore. And then I'm like, oh, you have to be nice to me. He's like, yeah, but you were never nice to me growing up on the mat. So I'm
I
like,
hope my
touche,
son's not listening to this.
touche, touche. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, this has been a heck of a conversation. Really enjoyed it. We're just a couple minutes away from wrapping up. And I just want to invite anybody, if you have been watching or are still watching live, would love to hear your comments or questions. So please post those before we wrap up. But Tim, what's in your future here? What are some of your upcoming goals for 2024? Or just moving forward.
2024, I want to kind of let the reins go a little bit. I'm still every day, I want to get to where I'm working, 4 days a week. I'm away. I live on a nice lake, that's a little bit away. So a little bit more time, but, I want to be on the mat more. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be, on the mat more, all aspects of, really focus on the three disciplines, right? Because sometimes my focus will go on one and the other, and you spend a little bit more time. But I want to focus on the other and just I want to be even in better shape, leaner. I want to be, healthier. I want to, and that's my goal, just to really, take care of me, right? The last,
Mm-hmm.
It'll be 30 years in April of next year. I have a great team. My daughter's here, my mom's here, my wife's here, my son is here. We have, a bunch of other instructors. I just want to kind of take care of myself a little bit more, because I feel I have my granddaughter, I have a granddaughter now, she's absolutely amazing. And she's my life, and she's 3. And I want to be on the floor, I want to be, going across my hands and my knees, and she's on my back like I'm a horse. And, so I still want to be able to do that, and as she goes up and she starts doing things, I want to be able to do with her. So I think it's more, just keeping me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, I love the fact that, number one, you want to be on the floor, because some people kind of have that opposite goal, moving forward. They're like, I'd like to get off the floor. I'd like to get out of the school. And I've experienced both. There was a time where I was completely out of my school, and I wasn't really as happy as I thought I might be. I thought that that's what would make me successful. But like, honestly, being on the mat is where I thrive, and where I love to be, whether it's training, whether it's teaching, whether it's working with, whoever. Like, I got into the business of martial arts because I love the martial arts, because I
Mm-hmm.
love being on the mats. And so I'm happy to hear that that's a goal of yours. And I just love the fact that, like, your whole family's involved.
Yeah.
It makes life fun, to do life, and to share your passion with your family as well. So good for you. I'm excited for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'm excited for me too.
Well, hey, keep getting after it. Want to thank everybody for watching us today. If you can do us a favor and share the video, once again, go to YouTube, subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast to see some of the other amazing guests that I've had on here. Thank you, Tim, for sharing your story and your experience with us. Want to remind everybody, listen, get out there and find your passion, right? Do what you love. Learn how to serve others. Get after it every day. Guys, that's it for Master Motivation today. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.